You know, confirmation isn't an end point for you guys, for our youth, but a starting place for your spiritual journeys. And the truth is, there is no end point. Don't tell anybody this, but I really like the Kung Fu Panda movies. In one of them, the main character, Po, is trying to discover the secret to enlightenment, and eventually finds that the secret is, there is no secret. Well, the same is true of the journey of faith and spiritual growth. The secret is there is no end point. The confirmation resources from the United Church of Christ put it this way: all Christians are on a journey. It is a journey to a place where we seek to find meaning in life, to that place where we come to know God. It's a journey away from the place where we think of ourselves first to the place where we can offer ourselves to others. All of us are on this journey all of our lives. Ours is a journey of learning about God and how to live in God's way. Ours is a journey of growing in love and service toward God and others. And I'm always reminded of this truth about our spiritual lives when I'm around our youth. Along this journey with you guys, I've been struck by your insight. You sense when something or someone is being unfair or hypocritical, and you're often able to express things in very fresh and frank ways. And so, whereas as for adults, sometimes we shy away from being totally honest. But I experience the youth group as a no BS zone. You speak the truth that you feel. I'm struck by your willingness to stretch. We ask you to take part in an unexpected journey with other unexpected companions, and you stretch to welcome one another. We see that each time we gather. You're from different families, schools, and backgrounds, and yet you include each other in really profound ways. I'm struck by your sense of basic fairness and compassion. You are moved by the inclusiveness of Jesus and by the call to social justice in our world, as Tanya said, the call to overcome injustice, violence, and evil of all kinds with good. And I'm struck by your openness. They are not yet constricted by creeds or shut down by shame or wounded by bad theology, like many of us have experienced in other settings. And I find you to be open to different understandings of God and in different ways to experience God. And we all shared some of our different experiences of God when we were out at Narrow Ridge. We heard from the youth, we heard a lot about the powerful experiences they've had in nature, the deep sense of inner peace that sometimes comes from being out in nature, out in creation. We heard about one of our youth who has a sense of being close to God at prayer services at a camp that he's often attended. And another who also said experiences of deep connection that he experienced out in nature, or even by touching a handrail and sensing how many thousands of people have touched that rail before. A sense of connection with others. In all of these ways, you remind me of my own spiritual journey and the spiritual journeys that all of us come to this church to share with one another. Here today, in all of our lives, we journey together, seeking to grow in understanding of God and to be changed by the love of Christ. We read on our closing retreat from a portion of Meeting Jesus Again for the First Time by Marcus Borg, and he talks about what is discipleship in the New Testament. And he said, it's a following after Jesus, a journeying with Jesus. It means to be an itinerant, a sojourner. It means undertaking the journey from the life of conventional wisdom to the alternative wisdom of life in the Spirit. To journey with Jesus means listening to his teaching, sometimes understanding it, sometimes not quite getting it, which is true for all of us, and yet continuing to listen and to learn. Discipleship means eating at his table and experiencing his banquet, and that banquet is an inclusive banquet, including not just me and us, but those who we tend to exclude. Journeying with Jesus also means to be in community, which is why we're welcoming these youth into our midst today to become part of the alternative community of Jesus. Discipleship is not an individual path, but a journey in a company of disciples. It is the road less traveled, yet it involves being in a community that remembers and celebrates Jesus. And discipleship involves becoming more compassionate. Be compassionate as God is compassionate is the defining mark of the follower of Jesus. Compassion is the fruit of life in the Spirit and the ethos of the community of Jesus. Finally, discipleship offers us a vision of faith, vision of the Christian life as a journey of transformation, exemplified by the story of discipleship in the New Testament, as well as the Exodus and exile stories in the Old Testament. It leads from life under the lordship of culture and ego, that dominating voice that we hear from outside or sometimes from inside, to the life of companionship with God. It's an image of the Christian life, not primarily as believing or being good, but as relationship with God, and that relationship does not leave us unchanged, but transforms us into more and more compassionate beings, more and more like Christ. The truth is, like all of us, our youth have been on a spiritual journey all their lives. Confirmation is a moment along the way when we pause to affirm that truth, the spiritual journeys you've already been walking, and a moment when we pause to welcome you into the church community to share with us the long journey home to that place where we learn to think, speak, and act in God's way, not in the way of a fear-filled world. So thanks for taking this journey and for letting Tanya and I walk with you along it too. It's been really special.